with the NBA, I feel like right now we have to talk about the biggest story that's happening in the NBA, and it's the fact that the Pistons are actually good this year.
It's insane.
Last year they were historically bad, comically bad, and there are just a lot of great things happening with the Pistons. They're beating some good competition. They're ultra competitive. Cade Cunningham is taking a real leap in his game, and this team just feels functional. And we can talk more in depth about it. John, what do you think has been the biggest difference from last year to this year?
There's a lot of differences, and I think it starts off one with coaching. Last year, Monty Williams came in. He was really at no point prepared for the job. This was someone that didn't even prioritize. Yes, a great point. Never pay someone to do a job that they vividly tell you they don't want. But this year, it's been a total 180 when you bring in a guy like J.B. Bickerstaff, who is a good floor raiser defensively, right? This group gets back Asor Thompson a little more recently, and then to coalesce with that, Cade Cunningham, for the first time, has a respectable supporting cast. You put next to him our guy Malik Beasley. You and I went back and forth.
Fucking kills me. He's good again.
And this year, he's been great, shooting 40% from three on 9 attempts. And what's really stunk for this team was losing Jaden Ivey for the season. He was finally finding a rhythm alongside Cade in the backcourt. And the crazy thing is that this team has won 6 of their last 7 games without Ivy. You're beating the Wolves, you're beating the Knicks. And I think to go along with that, veteran addition of a Malik Beasley, you have a guy like Tobias Harris who no longer has expectations. I feel like that's when he's been his best. You look back to when he was getting max deals, we're off the heel of him with the Clippers on that kind of go-lucky team that really had no pressure. And you go along with that and you go down the board, and they went from 26th in defense to 16th in defense. Last year, they were 26th in three-point shooting, around like 34%, pretty abysmal. This year, they're right outside the top 10 because it's not just Beasley and Tobias Harris who have been like respectable starters, but you go down the board on that bench, you've got guys like Simeon Fontecchio have just been really solid kind of reserves. And then most importantly, I think we're seeing this is who Cade Cunningham was advertised to be. I'm saying Rich Chera, this is someone that he's been high on. I think he's the second most deserving first-time All-Star this year. And Cade's the type of lead guard who doesn't hold you back in any sort of way to where you can build a strong foundation with him. And even if there's not that number 2 star right now in Detroit, he's been able to make it better. His three-point shooting's at a career high, 38%, mid-range, 48%. Defensively, he can really lock in on that end late in games, and there's nothing that Cade can't do at a high level. And I feel like with his playmaking ascension as well, it's really been a testament to the first time in his career that he's had a respectable cast.
And it's been super fun to watch the different ways that he can break you down offensively, too. He can go and put his back to the basket, too, and find a way to either get to the cup or just make the right decision. But, John, you hit the nail right on the head. The spacing that Cade Cunningham now finally has, it's kind of opened up a new level to his game and just a different layer to the Detroit Pistons as a whole. You see him right now, he's third in terms of assists per game in the entire NBA. You knew that he had that playmaking to him, but then we wanted to see consistency. One, staying on the court. We know that when you're on the court, you are a special talent. Unfortunately, prior to this season, you had been surrounded by talent that really wasn't great whatsoever. So we really couldn't evaluate how much of a floor raiser you actually are. This season, they had a clear game plan. Let's go and let's put players that can actually fit around Cade. Let's get some floor spacers. These last 2 drafts, they kind of have not done that with Asar, with Ron Holland. These guys are more so players that are slashers, going to be finishing near the basket, more athletic, exactly. But when you go and you add Malik, Tobias, and these are guys that just are trying to be role players, not do anything more than that. Have Cade be the facilitator, be the main guy, whether it's going downhill or obviously creating for his own. We've seen the benefit of spacing around Cade and for the Detroit Pistons. And they still aren't this amazing statistical team. They're a top 15 offense. They're a top 18 defense. They just, in the month of January, have figured out how to play winning basketball. And that's what it comes down to when you're having a young team. Finding a way to string wins together to show yourselves it's possible. And a lot of credit to J.B. Bickerstaff, like you mentioned, John. Yeah. He got shit on last year. And obviously we see the coaching change this year, and the Cavaliers have been the best team in basketball this year. So it looks in their part they've made a right decision. But sometimes decisions like that can be beneficial to both parties. And now we're seeing the Detroit Pistons reap the benefits of the Cavaliers moving on.
Yeah, it's dope to see that, a lot of times you just need to change the scenery. I think we're hearing about that a lot in the NFL. We're talking about your Steelers later, maybe. The Cowboys making change scenery with Mike McCarthy. Even if you have success, and great success doesn't mean that you can't move off a guy or you should move off a guy. Because you look at J.B. Bickerstaff the last couple of seasons, I think Cleveland has disappointed, maybe, those first rounds. I know, of course, they won last season against the Magic, but that went to 7 games dogfight the year before they lost to New York, but he moves on, goes to Detroit. They're having the best season they've had in a long, long time. And then you look at Cleveland, who picked up Kenny, is, like Drew mentioned, the best, if not the second best team in basketball, right up there with the OKC Thunder, at least from a record perspective. But the Pistons have been really good all season long, but really in these last 12 games has when they've been picking up. They're 10-2 in their last 12. They are a top 6 offense. The defense is top 15, top 16. So it still is this offense that's really leading the charge. But it's not like they're doing this against like just bum teams. They definitely do beat up on the Raptors and the Nets. And don't get me wrong, but they're 10-2 in the last 12. One of those losses was a 3-point loss to Golden State. The other loss was to the Denver Nuggets. But they also beat the Knicks in that span, the Wolves, the Suns, the Lakers, who are a decent team. In terms of beating teams over 500, they have more wins against teams over 500 than Orlando and the Bucks. They have the same amount of wins against teams over 500 as the Knicks, the Grizzlies, and the Dallas Mavericks. So this isn't some team that's just going up there and beating up on the bottom feeders like the Utah Jazz and the Raptors. Like, they're taking care of business against under 500 teams. But when it comes to actually playing good opponents, teams that are going to be playoff teams, they could also step up. And I think that a lot of that has to do with Cade Cunningham. We next show, we're probably going to do our all-star predictions. To me, Cade's a lock, all-star starter. To me, he's past that, and is he an all-NBA player this year? Because I think the Detroit Pistons, even last year, I thought, at least me personally, I didn't think they were going to be as bad as they were, right? This was a team that lost 30 damn games in a row. They were fucking dog shit. Coming into this year, I thought they'd be like, probably compete for the play-in. I was not expecting them at really any point in the season to have a 10-2 stretch and be a top 6 offense in basketball. The fact that Cade is breaking out in the way that he is, in the fashion that he is, without a co-star, without a number 2. I look at a guy like Anthony Edwards last season. I'm not trying to send some shots, but goddamn, you got Karl-Anthony Towns, you got Gobert, you had a really good team around you. And with Cade, it's like, oh shit, we just get him some shooters and we'll figure it out, So I think Cade has gone above and beyond expectations, even though he was the number 1 overall pick, to have this much success and win this much in Detroit. He's an all-star lock to me, and he's trending like an all-NBA lock as well.
He threw a shot at Anthony Edwards, whether you like it or not.
This is the first time in Cade Cunningham's career that I feel like how I feel about him right now is how I felt about him as a prospect and what he could be in the NBA. I look at Cade Cunningham, and this is a top 10 talent in the NBA. He can be one of the 10 best players in the league. I think the next step for him is finishing around the rim better. He has the frame. He has the size. He finishes at the rim at 53%, which is a very low number for a player of his size. It's not even like 50th percentile. That needs major improvement. But if he can finish around the rim at a very efficient clip, I mean, we're talking about a player that can be the very best point guard in the NBA. I think with SGN, the Lucas of the world, they're like kind of hybrid. So is Cade in a degree. But he can be one of the 5 best point guards in the NBA. Like, I look at Cade Cunningham's ceiling. You mentioned what he's doing with these players. They're good players, but Malik Beasley's a vet minimum contract. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a vet minimum. I know he's making more this year, but that's because of the contract that the Mavericks gave him beforehand.
It's been bothering me.
They have not surrounded Cade Cunningham with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. These players aren't those level of players. They're shooting well, and it fits right now. But Cade Cunningham with the better supporting cast, you can only imagine what that can be. And I think that's the great thing about the Pistons, that they found themselves in a scenario where their future is very bright, because Cade Cunningham is showing that he could be what you're saying, like an all-NBA level caliber player, to where this year it's really hard to find 10 players that have been playing better than Cade this year. When you take into account the context of the situation, I want to do a would you rather with you guys. Would you rather Cade Cunningham edition?
Here we go.
First name up, LaMelo Ball.
Cade Cunningham.
I'm going Cade.
Okay, I'm still going to take LaMelo.
I'm going to go Cade Cunningham as well. Next name up, Darius Garland.
I would say Cade.
Damn. Pulling out heartstrings here, man. I'm going with Cade, but I mean, that takes a lot, because DUG is my favorite guard in the game.
Garland has been overly impressive this year. He's not been more impressive than Cade.
Agreed.
I'm going with Cade Cunningham. Jalen Brunson.
JB. JB is arguably a top 10 player. I think Cade can get there, but right now it's going to be JB.
We're going to say, you talk about Cade becoming a top 5 guard. Brunson's already that.
Yeah, it's definitely still Jalen Brunson, but of course you're talking about a Cade who's 23 years old, right? Like, you're telling me the next 5 years, Cade's going to be a better player.
Whose ceiling is higher?
I think
At their very best.
Cade, because of his size.
I don't know.
Let me say this.
I'm not sure.
Brunson plays the point guard position this season near flawless.
I disagree.
The playmaking from Cade is at a higher tier.
This playmaking from Brunson this season has been drastically better than years before.
Right, but the
I
other guy's
think
more
that
assists than
he's
Jokic,
actually
right?
he's held Karl Anthony Towns back when he's been on the court with him.
You know,
Karl Anthony Towns.
How?
Karl Anthony Towns this year.
I wouldn't say that.
This is statistically this is correct. Karl Anthony Towns this year per 40 possessions, he averages the most points in the NBA when Jalen Brunson is off the court.
Doesn't that make sense to you?
Not shocked.
No,
Yeah, it
no, it doesn't. You know,
sense.
If Brunson, who is your lead guard, who has the ball in his hands more often than not, is off the court, you, the second scorer on the team, well, right now, you could argue first, when you don't have him on the court, yeah, we're going to be looking to you.
no, that signals to me that Karl Anthony Towns needs more shots. He's been the best player on the Knicks this year. He's been the best offense player on the Knicks this year. And there are a lot of times still where Jalen Brunson gets tunnel vision and he hunts his own shots. And he's a scoring guard. That's his archetype.
He should, though.
I know. I'm not
he's
saying
still been uber
I'm not
efficient.
saying he shouldn't, but it just goes to show that when we run our offense through Cat, that's when the Knicks have been at their very best this year. And that kind of dynamic with Brunson and Cat trying to figure it out, right now it's more so kind of 50-50. Like Brunson is still getting his own. He's still looking at Cat. And as a point guard, with the way Cat's playing, it should be more of like a 70-30 where we got to look at Cat more.
You're kind of bugging out right now.
No, Cat's been the best offense player on the Knicks this year.
He
without a
has,
doubt.
and I don't disagree. But
Without a
again,
doubt.
there's been no player that has had to adjust their role more on the Knicks than him.
Yeah, but
Brunson.
that's the thing. Jalen Brunson, him taking a leap as a facilitator is him averaging 7 assists per game this year.
I don't even care about the assists, more so as I see him trying to get OG involved, trying to get Mikal involved. Obviously, understanding Karl Anthony Towns has been one of the most impressive centers in basketball. Let's obviously run our offense through him, but in moments still, I have to identify and realize when it's my time to go get a bucket.
The Knicks have still been, are they number one offensive rating? Top three?
Top
two,
three.
whatever they are.
Yeah.
I mean, even though, because I feel like if you went through every duo in the NBA, if you take one of them off, the other player's points per 40 possession whatever is
with
probably
most
going to go
duos.
up. You know, just naturally.
SGA leads the NBA in points per 40 possessions in the league. But you know they play through him. You know that's how OKC plays through. They
And when
play
he gets
their
off the
offense
court,
through
it
him.
gets ugly.
I think that right now, Brunson is still very well in the midst of figuring out how to balance everything. And I think watching the Knicks, like Karl Anthony Towns, clearly he needs more touches per game. Like he's playing at that high.
He's been
level.
amazing.
And Brunson right now is still struggling to find the right balance with that. And there are times where he does hunt his shot down too much. And with Jalen Brunson and Cade Cunningham in the ceiling, you know, before the Knicks made the move to get Jalen Brunson, and we had this magical season with Julius Randle and stuff that I kind of was annoyed at the time. I wanted the Knicks to tank for Cade Cunningham because I wanted him to be the face of the Knicks because he was that special of a talent, in my opinion. We had the magical season. We made the playoffs. We lost in the first round, so we missed out on the draft pick, of course. And Jalen Brunson has played flawlessly. Since he's gone to the Knicks, he's played amazing, and it's the best contract in the NBA. But like, if you're asking me as a Knicks fan, like Brunson or Cade for the next 5 years, I would go Cade. I think Cade has a higher ceiling.
Is it just because he's bigger?
It's not. It's because I think he's a better playmaker too.
I don't disagree there.
Because even though Cade is a
And
player
better
that's 5
defender.
inches
I think he's
taller-
had to work. I'm sorry, John.
No, you're good. Cade is the better defender. He's the better playmaker. But at the same time, Wall being 5 inches taller, Brunson's the better interior scorer.
Yeah,
And late in
by a
games,
lot.
you look at who you'd rather have to create from all three levels. I still prefer Brunson's pull-up shooting from three. So I think that is something that most teams are going to find more appealing late in the game.
He's a veteran player, though. I mean, Brunson's, you know, he's been the guy in New York for multiple years now. This is Cade's really first year breaking out, being the player he is. So I'm not surprised.
Also, Cade's third year. Cade played 12 games in
Yeah,
year
and his
two,
first year didn't
so-
play. Exactly, his first year didn't play. This is really his second year.
Like I think Cade Cunningham, his
His
ceiling,
second year he didn't play. First year he missed like a month.
First year,
Yeah.
he missed a month with his ankle. Yeah.
his ceiling is like I said,
high.
like one of the 5 best point
high.
guards in the NBA. Right now, I think Brunson, he's like you said, he's a more well-rounded, efficient scorer. So it's really between if you value efficient scoring over defense and playmaking, then you can swing things a little bit. But you know, right now I'm fine with Jalen Brunson being over Cade.
Just for context on shot attempts, Karl Anthony Towns right now is averaging 16.5 field goals a game. That's 30th in the NBA. He's right between Steph, Levine, Jaren Jackson, DeMar, Jordan Poole. Jalen Brunson's at 18 shots a game. He's 15th with Devin Booker, Kyrie, Brandon
That's what I'm saying.
RJ.
You know, Brunson should be taking less shots than Cat this year.
What's Brunson's efficiency?
So I have the true shooting percentage here.
Here we go.
Karl Anthony Towns, his true shooting percentage is 66.4% true shooting.
Which is amazing.
Brunson has that 60.3% true
Great,
shooting.
which is also amazing.
Karl
for a
Anthony
guard.
Towns, looking at their point differentials per cleaning the glass, Karl Anthony Towns has a plus 8.4 point differential with the Knicks this year. Brunson is at minus 3.3 this year. So I didn't think Cat would be better than Brunson. Like 100%, I didn't. What Cat is doing, like he's reaching the highest level of what he can be, and I think there's even more room for him to improve. It's really just a testament of how great Cat has been, and maybe I should have saw it coming because nobody saw Jalen Brunson being what he was, and then he got to the Knicks, and he took everybody by storm.
Tom
and Cat's,
Thibodeau's the greatest ever.
Tom Thibodeau is amazing outside of playing like guys 40 minutes per game.
Yeah,
But I understand it because why would I dig into this bench that is not that great?
Area Hoop Porty, man,
season.
he's good. He's good.
I just think
really
that the
think my guys
starters
fresh
are
to
amazing.
playoffs.
I think you need to find players, though. You need to give
Oh
guys
no, you need to
opportunities.
find him. I
Yeah.
agree.
The starters are amazing, but you cannot play Mikal Bridges 39 minutes per game
That's not gonna
and then
be sustainable.
expect
Yeah.
in the playoffs for him to have fresh legs and hit his shots. I feel like the way that Tibbs is running the rotation, and he's going to do what he does because that's what Tibbs is. That's what he's always done. If he keeps doing this, we're just bound to run into the playoffs and OG Anunoby and Mikal not have their legs and just miss
Then
open
you have
shots.
to rely on that bench more, and I don't really think the bench is too much of an issue once Mitch comes back and you have him and Deuce.
No.
But I think for right now, I mean, there's a lot of positives with what Tibbs has done in New York, but definitely that's like a huge concern. I think it's not really a sustainable way to keep your guys fresh, like you said. And then also we saw Knicks last year get completely ravaged by injuries to the point that they're missing 6 rotation players, and that's why they lost in Game 7 and it wasn't competitive.
Who has a higher ceiling, John Morant or Cade Cunningham?
Ooh, man.
That's tough.
Here's breaking down both. John Morant is, if not a little bit better, at worst, as good of a playmaker as Cade Cunningham. Scoring the basketball, going downhill, getting to the basket, John Morant is by far the better player. He's more athletic. It's just a matter of the 3-point scoring and mid-range.
Cade is the more complete player, but John Morant's the better scorer in the postseason. Now, I think that can change if Cade does start to level up in the interior, but outside the Lakers and Anthony Davis, there's not really any defense, I say, that can stop John Morant from averaging 28 and 8 in the postseason. But I would say that if you're building a team, you would more likely rather have Cade because for a point guard to be a plus defender and also a top 3 playmaker, top 5 playmakers is floor, that's something that you can kind of build a higher foundation off of. Whereas with Ja, he hasn't necessarily led multiple offenses. Well, he has led one top 10 offense, but I think there's a little bit more of a ceiling when you have Cade because he can kind of complement your supporting cast.
And I have more faith that Cade will figure out shooting around the rim than Ja will ever become an efficient 3-point or mid-range shooter. Like Ja's at 31% this year, I believe, which I think is a career high, at least over the last couple of seasons. He's been like around sub 30. I know he's been injured and suspended and whatnot, but it's hard to see a world where Ja Morant turns into an efficient shooter. And if you're just going to be a downhill guy and rely strictly on athleticism, it's hard to, have a 10-plus year career where you're just going to rely on that.
People didn't think De'Aaron Fox would ever be a prolific 3-point shooter. He's been that the last 2 seasons. Who knows?
What is he shooting this year?
De'Aaron?
Yeah.
Is it not like 37?
Okay, because, man, De'Aaron Fox, that would be huge for his development. Last year, I think he settled for a little bit too many threes. But, no, the fact that, to answer the question, John Morant and Cade.
It's not his career. He shot 34%
Oh, I'm
one
capping.
year.
Last year he shot 37.
Yeah, last year he was amazing. Cade Cunningham, the fact that we're having this conversation, I really just think speaks to how special he's been this year. Yeah. And it's such a great thing for the Pistons to have moving forward, like a true franchise player and a game changer. And, this is why, people are going to start pounding the table for them to maybe make a move to get them some more help.
Calm down. Let's relax. I don't think. I mean, if
Not
you want
a
to
major move.
Okay, I was gonna say around the edges, like if you want a couple moves here and there, but I'm not trading any sort of draft capital, young players. Like this is, I think what you're doing now is great, right? This 10-2 stretch is amazing. This is probably one of the best stretches Detroit has had in 3+ years at a minimum.
Decade.
Yeah, probably a decade. Maybe Blake got a couple in there. Who knows? But I think right now you just stay patient because this is still a younger team who, like we've mentioned, this is still a lot of, you have a mix of young players and kind of veterans who are on like short-term deals with Tobias, who kind of got brought in because number one, you had to pay somebody, but number two, could kind of stabilize everything. But I would give it at least another year. See what you got in some of these young players before you make a move. That's the next step. It's like you got Cade. This is your number one. Who's going to be your number two? Do you really have faith in Asar or Jaden Ivey or whoever one of these young players are? Do you need to go on the trade market or potentially another draft pick?
Also, from what Cade has shown us, it doesn't seem as if he's a diva or he's self-centered and everything's about him.
He's been through some shit. It seems to complain one time.
I was going to say he's been on one of the worst teams I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And he has trusted the process and stayed the course, and now he's come down on the other side. He is at the front and center of why they've been so amazing, and now rightfully so, he's getting all the attention.
Cade is this decade's Devin Booker.